It's the final home game for the ACU football team. I'm Shera Niemirowski.
And I'm Grant Boone. We'll preview the game against Southeastern Louisiana and go deep with the Wildcat quarterback. It's the Ken Collums Show right now. Welcome to Week 11 of the Ken Collums Show, presented by Lawrence Hall. I'm Grant Boone, alongside ACU Senior Journalism Major Shera Niemirowski and the head coach of the football Wildcats from ACU, Ken Collums. A little later this afternoon, here in Abilene, ACU hosts Southeastern Louisiana, the defending conference co-champions, in the final home game of the 2015 season. It's the 9th straight week of facing Southland Conference opponents, and Coach, way back in early September, coming off a bye, getting ready to take on Houston Baptist, you sat right here and you said, we're getting ready to get into a grind. It's been that and then some, hasn't it?
Yes, it sure is. And, you know, last year going through it for the first time, you really feel the gravity of what it feels like to play these teams every week. And there is no, you know, there are no weak teams. If you don't play well, there's no guarantee you're going to win the game. But if you do play well for 4 quarters, normally you have a chance to win.
Coach, it's a big day at Shotwell today. It's senior day. What stands out about this class?
Well, the fact is these guys have logged in. Every senior class that comes through they've logged in more snaps, more hours, more reps, more running sessions, more crying sessions, whatever it is, the good, the bad, and the ugly. They've done it longer than any other player here on our team. And what's unique about these guys is that they bridged us from Division II into Division I, which is very unique. And you know, they came here expecting one thing, but they're finishing receiving something totally different, and that says something about them.
They'll have a special place in ACU history, that's for sure. We will take a look at that game against Southeastern Louisiana a little bit later on in the show, but when we come back, highlights from a soggy Saturday night in Louisiana. Stay with us. It's the Ken Collums Show, presented by Lawrence Hall. Welcome back to the Ken Collums Show, presented by Lawrence Hall. Last Saturday night in Natchitoches, Louisiana, ACU took on the Northwestern State Demons. Final score 39-22. Coach, the game began rather inauspiciously for your team. You won the toss, you deferred to the second half. You kicked off to the Southland Conference all-time leader in kick returns and kick return yards, and he looked every bit the part. He returned it 55 yards. Ed Egan went on to have a huge night. He had 13 catches, 10 in the first half, which was exactly what he had in the game against your team last year. What makes Ed Egan, number 7 for Northwestern State, so good?
Well, first, he's talented. I mean, he can do it all. He's played corner for them. He's played receiver, and he's dominant in the return game. And we knew that our kick was not kind of what we wanted. It was low in a line drive, and you don't do that. That's like serving it up on a platter. So you know, and we didn't cover it well. So you know, you look up, and he's at the 50-yard line about that fast.
Yeah.
And then we have a face mask penalty, so they're in business. You know, on their first drive.
He had a bunch of catches in the first half, and some of them were tough, and some of them he just flat out. He just won some one-on-ones, didn't he?
Yes, and he's a talented guy, but he's super instinctive.
Mm-hmm.
And he's explosive, but the thing about Ed Egan is he can stop, almost like Taylor Gabriel type. He can stop as fast as he can start.
Yeah.
And that, if you want separation, you throw on the brakes and get your head around. And Rivers did a good job of getting the ball to him.
Yeah, we talked about that on the radio broadcast as well. We think about speed so much in terms of acceleration, but the ability to stop and then redirect. Yes. You watch these guys almost like a cartoon. They go flying past him, and he keeps going down the sideline. A great night for Ed Egan, a terrific player who you won't have to see anymore.
That's good.
That's a good thing. That's the best thing we can say about Ed Egan.
You tip your hat to somebody like that.
Yes, you do.
Let's move them on out.
Congratulations,
Right.
and we'll throw you a party. Just don't want to play you again. Well, Coach, a couple of possessions later, you took the lead when Dallas Seeley scooted into the end zone on that great play that's been so successful for you, where he sprints out left. He's got the option of throwing it to the receiver or keeping it himself. I thought he made a great read on it. 11 yards later, he's into the end zone with the extra point. They had theirs blocked by your team. It's 7-6, and at the end of the first quarter, you're sitting there leading the game 7-6. You had to be feeling fairly confident, didn't you, at that point?
Sure, and even throughout the first half, we didn't play a bad half. We only had 25 snaps in the first half, and you want more than that. But we moved the ball. We just did not finish drives, which is that's kind of, you want to know kind of the microcosm of our season. If you look at that first half, sometimes it looked not so great, but sometimes it's, you know what, hey, we're moving the ball, we're doing fine, but you got to finish drives. In that particular drive, we had a play called where Dallas could give the ball or pull it or throw it. He had three different things. So it was a triple option type play. He did a good job, made the right decision, and just kept running and used his speed. So, things were, halftime, we felt like, you know what, we can, if we just finish drives, we'll be fine. We'll get back into this game.
It's interesting because you did move the ball so well early in the first half. Late in the first half, when you get the ball back, toward the end of the second quarter, you go 3 and out, you give them the ball back, they score right before the half ends. If you go down and score, who knows what happens as the game goes on. Stephen Rivers, you mentioned him earlier, the quarterback. He seems to be finding his groove now. It helps when you've got number 7, Ed Egan, there to throw it to.
Yes.
He was nearly perfect, 21 of 28, 272 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and probably, not coincidentally, he was not sacked.
Yes, and that's critical. And you've heard me every week in here say, you know what, we better get pressure on their passer. The week before against Daniel Sams, we got a little pressure on him, and therefore he wasn't as effective. If you don't, especially a big, tall guy like Rivers,
6'7".
I mean, he can see the entire field.
He can see.
It's like he's on
at least that field, if not more.
That's right. And if you don't get pressure on him, he's going to be able to see everything play out. And for those big guys, things tend to move in slow motion for them because they can see everything. And we've got to do a better job of getting heat on the passer in order to be effective.
They outscored you 33-0 in the second and third quarters, and there was a feeling that came over me a little bit like this is something we've seen before, and this is something that we've talked about so many times, Coach. This is part of this foundation you're trying to lay. Mama said there'd be days like this. This is the very thing that everyone who had been ahead of us told us to be aware of. You're in that second, third year in the league, you're going to have some nights where you're just flat out outmatched. There are a lot of reserves coming in the next couple of years for your team. You've already got some great guys signed for next year. But when it rains, and it started out raining that night, when it rains, it kind of pours at times, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And I thought going into this season competitively, we would be very similar to what we were last year. Just looking at personnel, what we had back, what we brought in, how we matched up against the league from the previous year. But so, in that, we should be more competitive. But we played last game with that 14 guys that we were counting on,
including maybe your most explosive player in Jonathan Epps.
That's right. And so when you're going to be competitive and you take out a significant part of your guys, it just makes it that much harder. And it is important to remember that this is a journey, and that's what I talk to my guys all week about. That we're on rough waters. We're all in the boat, and it is rough waters. It is raining, and the water's coming over the side of the boat. Don't stop oaring. Mm-hmm. Just keep going. Just paddle. Just go. And because there is a destination, and this is a storm. A storm never stays on. A storm always moves through. There's going to be clear water, and we're going to get there. It's just right now. It's just tough, and these are tough days. But tough days bring about tough people. And we're going to be better off for this. That sounds like a cliche, but when you're in it, all you know is these waves are hitting the side of the boat, man, and this thing's going to sink, but you know it's not going to happen. Yeah. And you know ultimately that this thing is going to be right where we need it to be. It's just going to take a little time.
You scored 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, a 68-yard run by Herschel Sims, showing a burst that I'm not sure we've seen in the 2 years he's been here. I don't know that he's ever run it faster or better than he did on Saturday night. A couple of nice 8-10-yard runs than the big hitter. Every possession's important in every game, no matter who you are. But because of what you just said, with the foundation being laid, it seems to me like every possession now, no matter what the score is important, maybe a little extra important because of what you're trying to build with some young guys.
Yeah, but sometimes it feels like that, and it feels a little different, feels a little more important, but what we know is every single week, and what is as important as those snaps in the game are these snaps in practice. In everything right now, when you're growing, everything is critical, because as a head coach, you get what you demand or you get what you allow. And we have to do things right in practice. That's part of the building process. And when we get everything together, all of our clubs in our bag, because we're not playing with a full set of clubs right now. Whenever we get all those clubs, things will be fine. But it seems like everything is more critical, and it's really no different than it normally is. But just at this time, we are in a growth process, and it is important that we have some success.
The growth continues, and ACU will try to get back on the winning track later today at home against Southeastern Louisiana. As we go to break, take a look at some other scores from around the Southland Conference. The big one last week in Lake Charles, Louisiana, where the McNeese State Cowboys, after that narrow victory over ACU 2 weeks ago, rolled over Sam Houston State to remain undefeated this season and clinch their 14th Southland Conference title. Stay with us on the Ken Collums Show, presented by Lawrence Hall.
Welcome back to the Ken Collums Show, brought to you by Lawrence Hall. In an attempt to shake up the offense, redshirt freshman Dallas Seeley has started the past 2 games at quarterback for the Wildcats. Seeley has 814 passing yards and 164 rushing yards on the season. Hannah Knoll finds out what he's learned in the position so far.
I'm here with redshirt freshman quarterback Dallas Seeley. Dallas, thank you for joining us today. So you redshirted last year and you weren't able to play in any games. How has it been to come off the bench and actually play games this year?
I mean, at first it was a little bit like of a shock because I didn't get to play in a whole year, but I mean, with time I feel like it's gotten easier for me, and I feel like the redshirt year kind of helped me a lot because I got to get stronger, get faster, and get used to just being here and the whole college life in general. So, I mean, I think it was a positive getting a redshirt, and it's helped me a lot.
You've done well at managing the offense this year. How do you think your leadership on the field has affected your play?
I feel like I have pretty good leadership qualities. I'm not like a real vocal leader that's gonna like scream and yell, but I'm more of like a leading by example. I feel like I have good chemistry with everyone on the team. I try not to, be that guy that just makes people mad and gets on to them and yells, but just, talking to them and just being kind of cool about everything. And I think it's helped a lot, and I think it's worked so far.
You got your first start against a nationally ranked team and conference leader McNeese State. How do you think you handled the game, and what are your expectations moving forward?
I mean, I think I handled it all right. I was really nervous going into it because, I mean, I knew it was one of the best teams we would play all season, and it was my first start. So, I mean, it was really nerve-wracking. But, I mean, once I got out there and got through a few possessions and we started to move the ball pretty well, I mean, the nerves kind of went away, and I just did my thing and tried to help us win. And, I mean, it was a heartbreaking loss, but, I mean, I think we competed well, and we showed that we can compete with anyone. And, I mean, going forward, I feel like my first start was a good stepping stone in the right direction of where I want to go, and I think just moving forward I'll get more and more experience and just continue to get better and keep working hard.
Thanks again, Dallas, for joining us, and good luck for the rest of the season.
Thank you.
While football traveled to a rainy Louisiana, tennis wrapped up its fall season at the Grand Canyon Invitational in sunny Phoenix, Arizona. With this and other ACU sports, here's Jonathan Rates and Hannah Knoll.
Thanks, Shera. Volleyball struggled to get things going against Nicholls State for the second time this season as the team fell 3-0 on the road. The game was close in the box scores. Nicholls State racked up 43 kills to ACU's 38 and had 67 digs to the Wildcats' 66. Senior Jenny Lurch led the way with 9 kills and 12 digs, falling just short of another double-double, while senior Sarah Siemens contributed 27 assists. Senior Madison Hoover anchored the defense with 21 digs, and freshman Lauren Walker converted 4 blocks. The loss dropped the Wildcats to 8-6 in conference with just 2 games remaining on their schedule. The Wildcats wrap up a 5-game road trip and their season later today with another matchup with Northwestern State, a team ACU beat in straight sets earlier this season.
Tennis finished the fall season at Grand Canyon Invitational with multiple championships this past weekend. Junior Erin Walker led the women's team, winning Flight 1 singles on Sunday. Walker won 3 matches and defeated teammate sophomore Lucille Potier in the finals with scores of 7-5 and 6-3. Walker and sophomore teammate Whitney Williams won the Invitational's doubles championship Saturday, beating a pair from Grand Canyon University 7-5. The men's team came away with 4 titles this weekend. Freshman Joshua Sheehy won the Flight 1 singles, while sophomore Paul Domansky topped the Flight 3 singles. Nico Agritelli and Henry Adams won Flight 1 of doubles championships. Cole Lawson and Sebastian Langdon won the Flight 2 doubles championships by defeating their own teammates Domansky and Hunter Holman in a 3-set classic. The Wildcats will not be back on the court until next year when they open their spring season.
The women's basketball team is coming off another successful season with head coach Julie Goodenough at the helm. The Wildcats finished the 2014-15 campaign 17-12 overall and 9-9 in the Southland Conference, including an 83-65 win over Southeastern Louisiana in a game that aired on ESPN3. ACU will welcome 3 new faces to the team in guards Brecklin Wentz and Sarah Williamson and forward Mackenzie Martin. They also return 8 veterans, including all 5 starters from last season. Junior forward Susie Dimba became the first ACU basketball player to ever be selected to a Southland Conference preseason team when she was added to the All-Southland Conference women's basketball second team earlier this month. Dimba and the rest of the Wildcats begin their season at 7 p.m. Saturday against Wayland Baptist University in Moody Coliseum.
Men's basketball begins the 2015-16 season with one of its youngest teams to hit the court. Head coach Joe Golding said that the youth will play a major role in success this season.
We're extremely excited about it, but they're freshmen, so each night will be different with them. There'll be nights when they're going to be really good. There might be nights when they're not as good, and that's part of the process of being a freshman and growing. That's one of the reasons we did Costa Rica, was to help give those freshmen some experience and some college practice underneath the belt before we get started.
The Wildcats start their season with a home opener at 6 p.m. Friday against the University of the Southwest. Thanks for watching this week's JMC Network Sportscast. For Jonathan Rates, I'm Hannah Null. Back to you, Shera.
Thanks, guys. When we come back, we'll preview the Wildcats' last home game of the season against Southeastern Louisiana. Stay with us on the Ken Collums Show, brought to you by Lawrence Hall.
As we welcome you back to the Ken Collums Show, presented by Lawrence Hall, take a look at today's Southland Conference schedule. You'll see Northwestern State, after that impressive win over ACU last week, on the road in Huntsville to take on Sam Houston State. The Bearcats, whose loss last week knocked them out of a chance to win the conference, now might need to win out this season to make it back to the FCS playoffs. Remember, Sam Houston State was a national semifinalist last year. Well, today at Shotwell Stadium here in Abilene, it's the final home game of the season for the Wildcats as they host Southeastern Louisiana. Coach, the Lions, who shared the Southland Conference title last year with Sam Houston State and made the FCS playoffs, they come into Shotwell rather battered and beaten up like your team. You're not the only team that's dealing with some injuries. They don't look at all like what I think they thought they would look like when the year started,
No,
do
they don't, but that's a quality team down there. Coach Roberts does a great job, and you don't win the conference last year by luck. I mean, you've got to go through the gauntlet, and you got to beat people, and they did last year. And this year they've had some injuries. They've bumped their head a little bit, kind of like the Wildcats. And so it'll be 2 teams trying to get back on their feet. And but understand this: they're going to show up with really good athletes. They're going to be very well coached. In the kicking game, we better be sharp, or they will. Anytime that ball's in the air off of somebody's foot, they have a chance to catch it and run it all the way back. So we better be sharp, because they're hungry for a win. They've lost 4 of their last 5, and which is very uncharacteristic for them. So they'll be ready to roll.
Coach, looking at your defense against their offense, how do you prepare for a team when you don't even know who the quarterback is going to be this week?
Well, the quarterback is the least of your worries, because the problem is all the looks they give you. They'll go unbalanced. They'll use a lot of different formations, different personnel groups. They get a lot of people involved, which is what you're supposed to do. You get your best people involved, but they do it with a lot of different looks, motions, shifts, and which is going to force our guys closer to the ball to be sharp and to communicate in order for our run fits to be proper. And they try to be as balanced as they can. So whoever they have, they're gonna throw the ball. They're pretty good at throwing the deep ball too. They've got outside receivers that can run. The receivers are all 6'2" plus, so they don't hurt for guys that can get down the field.
Let's talk about your offense against their defense. Dallas Sealy's numbers last week, not great. When you saw the film, did it look a little better maybe than the numbers appeared?
Yeah, well, anytime you don't win and you don't look real sharp on offense at times, you think your quarterback doesn't play well. But he didn't play bad. He missed some throws, and there were a couple of times where he gave up on some plays a little bit quick because he was a little bit out of rhythm. It's critical to remember that he's still a young quarterback.
Second career start last week.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So the key is to get your quarterback in rhythm, let him do it enough in practice, and hopefully he can log enough game snaps to where you always hear throw the ball with your feet. Your feet, the rhythm of the play should tell you how long to hold on to a certain receiver and when to say no. And sometimes he was a little off on that, so it made him go to his second or third receiver a little bit quick.
Shera mentioned earlier that this is senior day, and this class, as you pointed out, really has a special place in ASU football history. They were recruited to play Division II football. They did for 1 year, and then all of a sudden here they are in the throes of a Division I FCS schedule, playing FBS teams many times over the last couple of years. The disappointment for me on senior day is that some of those guys are going to be in street clothes, Coach, and I'm thinking just to single one out, a guy like Cade Stone. One of the very first plays he ever made for you was a kickoff return for a touchdown as a freshman.
That's right.
The guy, you put him in a lot of different spots. He's done some good things, and it's a shame to see a guy like that not have a chance to put the pads on one more time, isn't it?
Sure. It's always unfortunate when guys cannot finish at the end, because you'll hear coaches across the country at this time of the year talking about finishing. You got to be a finisher. Let's finish well, because it's so hard. It's so hard to finish anything that is consisted of a grind. It's hard to do that. And it's hard to see any of the seniors leave just because they've done so much for your program. You've been through the good and the bad with them. You've had great conversations. You've had tough conversations. You've helped those guys grow through good and bad. Sometimes some of the best times of their lives, and sometimes some of the more tragic times in their lives. But now they're going, and now they'll leave, and you know what? They'll be husbands and fathers, and I'm fired up about that. But you want to see your guys finish with a good quality last couple of games, and some of these guys aren't going to get to do that.
Well, hopefully the ones who are in uniform will get to go out with a victory, and it should be a fun day for those seniors as they take on Southeastern Louisiana. The kickoff is at 2 o'clock. We'll have the pregame show for you on the ASU Sports Network beginning at 1:30. ASU in Southeastern Louisiana from Shotwell Stadium. For Shera Niemirowski, and for Coach Ken Collums, I'm Grant Boone. Thanks for watching the Ken Collums Show presented by Lawrence Hall. Enjoy the game today. We'll see you back here next week.